Well, welcome back to Resolute Reveal, a podcast by Resolute RE. We are a Texas-based commercial real estate brokerage helping our clients make better decisions and better returns from property investment to tenant site selection. We deliver real results. I'm Ray Kang here with my co-host Martin Turner, and we are looking forward to today's conversation with Fly Jamerson, someone who's helping commercial real estate professionals and the commercial real estate industry overall be seen and heard. So welcome to the show, Fly. Thanks for being with us.
Gosh, just the best way to spend a Friday morning. So perfect for me.
Well, you've got quite a story, and I think we'd love to hear more of it and the people that's listening to the podcast. So if you could start with maybe your origin story and how you got to where you are now, particularly in commercial real estate.
All right, let's do it this way. I'll tell you where I'm at now, and then we'll go back to the beginning. A little flashback sequence. Okay, so Fly Jamerson, I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but I work nationally. I'm the director of growth and partnerships for Movo Media Marketing, where we do social media for commercial real estate professionals so that you don't have to. And I found myself in this role after an intense, almost not even yet 2 years in commercial real estate. So I have a background in the arts and entertainment industry. I was a writer and producer in theater, film, and television for about 15 years. I was a college professor. I was teaching, honors college classes about popular entertainment and video games and all kind of stuff. And then COVID hit the same week that I became a mom. Arts and entertainment and academia were like, no, you're not going to make any money. So I decided I'd like to make a little bit of money and pivoted my skills into marketing and particularly social media marketing, since that was accessible. 2020, the social media that came out of that year, right? Anyway, so I was working in social media marketing and had an opportunity to go in-house at a brokerage here in Baton Rouge. And I thought that I was just taking kind of a boring office job. And then when I sat down and I started listening to the brokers talk on the phone to prospects and clients, I was like, oh my God, these are the most amazing stories and nobody has any idea that they're here. Like I had never heard Bob Knackle's name before. I think it was, April of 2024. And that was just 2 months after, he went through his whole, departure from JLL and started BKREA. And when I started at the brokerage here in Baton Rouge, I said, well, who's doing good commercial real estate content? And they said Bob Knackle's name. And so I started studying him like a fiend. I have a terminal degree, in, literature and history, of media, but we won't talk about Shakespeare. Anyway, I started studying Knackle. I found Mo. I was like, okay, it's clear that Mo is steering the ship here. And then it just so happens that we're best friends. And eventually she was like, all right, come work for us. And so now we're here. That was a mid to long version of the story.
So Mo is your partner?
Yeah, Mo Regalado is the CEO. She's responsible for scaling Beth Azor, Bob Knackle, Rod Santomassimo, some of the biggest names in the business that have led the charge into, not only doing incredible things with their platforms, not just in, selling buildings, but in education and in, all the other things. They in turn have inspired, it's like the ripple effect. It's like everybody, all the bands that listen to the Velvet Underground, and then they're like, oh, we'll start a band. And, it birthed a new category. It birthed a new generation of people, capitalizing on a channel that still to this day, most of the industry, they don't take it very seriously. And it can cause a lot of trouble for people sometimes. So, yeah.
Well, I first got introduced to you while you were doing the work for that brokerage in Louisiana. Of course, I was following Bob at that time. It just kind of really started taking off, on TikTok and Instagram and all that, and LinkedIn, obviously. But there wasn't like a ton of that creative content out there when that kind of started off, right? But what you were doing with that group was really original. I remember those with 30-second market calls, and then you cold calling the brokers and asking for tips, which I thought was a lot of fun because you were showing a side of the business that's on the more personal side rather than like, commercial real estate could be like sometimes overly professional in a lot of ways. And that's kind of like the image that we want to project, I think, in this industry. Where did you come up with those ideas?
Yeah. So you're talking about the cold calling, cold callers series.
Right.
After I sort of complete my transition into this director position, and kicking off the year right, cold calling, cold callers is going to come back.
Cool.
And so, and just another season, another evolution. But the the place that it came from was I needed a way to do exactly what you said. I needed to find a way to capture the things in the business that nobody could see because it's all happening one-on-one on a phone call and behind closed doors. And there are lots of reasons why that needs to happen. But when 75% of what you talk about on the phone with these people has nothing actually to do with the deals, but is very much more about who you are as a person, the values that you share, like the reason you're going to go vibe on the golf course after the deal is done or whatever, right? Like that is, and now with the advances in AI and technology, and like the feed is so saturated with repetitive slop. It's like who you are as a person and the way that you talk to people is the only thing you have. And I
Mm.
saw that. So, but I needed a way to capture that. I couldn't interrupt the brokers. They need to, we're not going to go out at the time. We weren't, but at the time, I didn't have the green light to just like go out and waste a bunch of time on a content day, and I needed to figure out a way to do it all at my desk. And then there was one night that I figured out exactly what I was going to do. And I torched my Instagram account, completely wiped it. And then the next day, it was the beginning of cold calling cold callers. I went into the office that
Wow.
morning and I said, I'm going to be Flo, the progressive girl. I'm going to put my body on the line and see if this works. And it did.
Yeah.
And so now that was, I needed to figure out how to do it to be able to figure out how I could help other people do it. And
Mm.
so, but that's always kind of what I've done is sort of figure it out for myself and then take myself out of it and rinse and repeat. I don't know.
Mm.
So I'm an outsider to the world of social media. What was the cold
Yeah,
calling cold
yeah,
callers?
yeah.
What was it?
So I was terrified of talking to people on the phone. That was the other thing about it. And so, but I was never gonna, like, I literally couldn't pick up the phone in the office if it rang on my desk. So, but I decided if I was gonna make it in this business, and I was surrounded by, all of these, high performing top producers, both in the office and, seeing them in the industry, I was like, I have to pick up the phone and do this. So I would roll the camera on myself, with one phone, and I would actually call people cold on speakerphone, kind of like a reverse call-in show, where then they would pick up the phone. I would say, hey, it's Fly. This is who I am. This is who I work for. I'm calling all the top brokers to ask them for their advice on video, and the cameras rolling now.
Yeah.
And
Really
the
good.
the first I did it with the brokers that were internal to the company at first, and then I was like, let's see what else we can do. And I started cold calling Knackle. I mean, fast forward, I think it took me 17 calls and like 20 emails and 30 texts or something. It was like I had my own little leaderboard.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
yeah.
Also, when he finally picked up the phone, he was on vacation in Rome in his pajamas. He told me getting into bed, and that he but call him back. And I was just like, I just talked to Bob Knackle in his pajamas.
While
Anyway,
he was in Italy, yeah.
yeah, right. Like I do try not to interrupt the man now, but Gabe Marins was the first person who picked up the phone, and he gave me incredible advice, which was that
Mm.
like the risk, the risk that you're taking when you step up to the plate, like you're gonna strike out, but like you have to keep going.
Mm.
And so it was like, so then I'll also what I did, because I actually am a little bit of a junkie, like a deal junkie. I joke I'm a content junkie, but I'm always trying to, get another sale. Gabe Marins, who do you think that I should call next?
Mm.
He sends me into the phone of Ken Ashley with, Cushwick in Atlanta, and, founder of the CREI Summit. And, every conversation from there, it just kept opening doors. And then I called Aviva Sonnenrich while she was in labor. She
Your
was a
timing's perfect, isn't it?
But to me, again, like it really captured, and also she's a beast because she was like
Yeah.
going in, she was about to have her baby and she picked up the phone because I was an
Wow.
unknown number. I could have been a lead. Like that is what I am talking about. So, but really also, the doors that it was opening up for me was, proving the point that I was, trying to articulate, or a hypothesis I was chasing at the time, which was that these real people, Ken Ashley was driving through the Chick-fil-A to get his lunch, in between, site visits or something. Like everyone here, we're all just people. And, you're doing amazing things, in the community, and how people perceive us, whether they perceive us as real people who have real goals, who have real families, who that the content could be really powerful to change the perception of not only, are you somebody that, I can like, know, trust, and transact with. And then you look at all the, where are all of the positive representations of developers, investors, and finance guys and builders. Like there's no positive representations in the
I
media
love
on
that.
that.
Right.
And that's kind of like my ulterior motive of really why I'm
I like
here.
it.
But I mean, I got to transact, so I got to help you guys make a little money.
We're betting on you. So, I mean, so your background was in entertainment, right? But far away from commercial real estate. Kind of just jumping in. I'm sure there was a learning curve to all of this too. What did you learn during that time? Because I'm guessing you are probably juggling a lot of things. I mean, social media was relatively new too, right? In a way,
Yeah.
and then with this whole different industry that you kind of walked into.
Well, I mean, I just dove in head first because I had a contract, and
Mm.
like that was what was going to pay the bills. And I think that innovation is born out of constraint. And so I had to hit post 125 times a week on a topic that I knew nothing about. And so
Mm.
I immediately needed to learn everything about the topic, to at least be legible. And that's actually what I did in my career previously, was that I looked at I did a lot of work that was very editorial. And I guess the closest thing that I would describe it as is, I would work with artists specifically on their scripts. I still get calls probably twice a year from people from my old life that are like, "Hey, can you tell if this is any good?" Or "I think you're the only one who can figure this one out." So, which is interesting, but again, there's no money in that, which is why I left. So now it's just my hobby. But looking at what the intentions of an artist, what are they trying to do? What's the medium they're trying to do it in? And then what are
Mm.
they going to need to do with that medium to have an impact on the audience that they're trying to have? It's just
Mm.
that, in the entertainment business, it's a closed loop, right? Like
Yeah.
it exists for the sake of itself. And that's not always true. But, they're selling you a movie, and they're not making a video to try to, build a relationship to sell a building. So, but I mean, like, look, at some point I was listening to like 6 episodes of Yona Weiss's The Weiss Advice podcast every day. I read sales training books. I read all of Rod Santamosimo's books. I mean,
Yeah. Good
I just,
stuff.
I essentially treated it like a graduate thesis, while at the same time I was trying to, take what I was learning and put it in there. And yeah, I mean, really, that to me, that's one of the amazing things about, everyone who's producing content is, and this is also an industry of people who are bootstrappers. It's like every day, Ken Ashley says this all the time. Every day when I wake up, I'm unemployed. Like, and I got to get up and go make some money. And just that energy and the type of person that does that is like, yeah, this is an industry of self-starters, and like
Mm.
you better learn for yourself or you're not going to make it. And so I think I probably could, well, this is just a problem with me and just like all of us, I probably could have just gone in there and posted the same Canva graphics and, like the bad videos with b-roll that have nothing to do, just like I could have just done it and phoned it in, and I just couldn't, because again, like what I saw was there is, and continues to be an extremely undervalued asset. So it's amazing to me when I, come into contact with guys like you who are like, you get it, and you're doing it in a way that works for you, you know, at
You're
least it seems
clearly
that way.
talking to Ray.
Well, which is like
appreciate
no,
that.
because
you know,
I don't get it.
well, what don't you get
Well,
about it? Can I ask you a
Well,
yeah,
no,
question?
no,
let's
no,
talk
no,
about
no.
that.
I get what you're saying about the returns. I just I've never picked it up. I've never posted, you know, I think I've posted 3 things in my life on LinkedIn and, it's not something I've ever invested time into. Not because I don't believe in it. I regret the fact that I haven't invested time in it. But, here I am.
Well, and so this is now exactly what I do, in my work in all of the different capacities and roles that I have, right? Is that I get it. And for me, again, if I go back and I look at how my old career sort of primed me for this one, it's like, you have a business, you have success, there are things that you do in your work that are solid foundation for something like that, except it just has to be translated into a different format. And the actual translation, how do you go out and win business, and maybe not just you, but just like everybody, right? It's like, you know, we're doing things all the time that make great content. It's just like the practice of noticing, capturing, and all the other things that have to happen, like the formatting and like optimizing it for the platform and making sure it's SEO like optimized or whatever, like that. There's so much that goes into it that it's a stopper. And so, whether it's time, whether it's a technical limitation or capacity, whether it's a confidence issue. I mean, I cried the first time I did a Facebook Live. There are a lot of barriers, and I actually don't think there's anything that you can do that is right or wrong. I think there's only actions that yield different results, right? And are those results tied and satisfying your business goals? But like, yeah, I mean, like for some, honestly, you want to know what? Some people don't need it. I know dogs that are doing ripping massive deals, and you want to know what? They photocopy a picture that they printed out from the MLS, and they don't even have a LinkedIn profile. They're fine. So it's just like, you don't need it. It's a nice to have, but like, when you have it, it can be more than nice. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to say, so when you do work with a client, you pick up a new client, what is it that and I assume that the clients that you're working with are most of them folks that are posting, that do have a presence and are just trying to take that to the next level? Or are you typically picking them up from my stage where, they're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Help me figure this thing out.
we do both. It's a mix of both. And I won't go as far to name names other than sort of like, the known and established partnerships. But I think for us it all comes down to time. Ultimately, as an agency, we are trying to save you time. Your time is the most valuable thing that you have, and y'all need to be, using that time to directly interface with people and close some deals, guys, right? And so, you know, it's a different entry point. If it's somebody who's got, like if Ray said, "Hey, Fly, like, can you take this to the next level?" Like, that's like, oh, yummy. Yes, I want to do that because it's great. Like, let's elevate the asset and increase the surface area of what we know is already working. That's a dream client for me. However, the beginning stage, if we're starting from nothing, we have a system to like figure out where to start. Because even if there's no blanket prescription, there's too many variables, there's too many platforms, there's too many asset classes, there's too many, regional, cultural, differences that you need to take into account. The way that, Bob Knackle talks, is going to be different than the way a broker in Texas talks, right? It's just a different culture. But besides all those, different variables, there are things that, we can do, right in the beginning. We can map your voice tone and style, right? We can isolate what are you trying to do in your business, this year or in the longer term, and who are you trying to reach? And we start there with the clients, who maybe have come to us with a little bit more sophisticated system, but really the work around clarifying the messaging, like that, that's not hard to figure out. And then from there, figuring out, okay, so, what are the formats that you would like? Because the thing I find with people who are beginning, like I have a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, can you like make me go viral on a video? And I'm like, I don't know. Can you be on video? Can you do it? And I don't mean that to sound dismissively, but when you put a camera in front of your face, it's a whole different bag. Yeah, I'm just laughing because some of the text messages I get sometimes from these guys, but I'm just like, what? You need to stop wasting time worrying about how you look online or how you sound or any of that, because we're going to take care of all that for you. But you need to post your origin story. You need to have a values statement or something therein. If you have deals that you've closed, like you need to talk about them and show your results, right? There are pieces, that we can kind of start with, right? You need like give us some market commentary. What does that look like? And create a whole system that is mapped to your voice, targeting the people that you want to reach on a platform you feel comfortable on that is also going to work for you, and then make it so that you just don't have to think about it or waste any time on it. So, I mean, Martin, let's go.
You're selling me right now,
What do you
I'll tell
mean
you.
by that? A platform that you feel comfortable with?
Well,
You're
look,
saying between LinkedIn and
yeah, because there's big beefs between the platforms. All
Yeah.
the guys on
Yeah.
X make fun of the LinkedIn guys all the time, and then there's like all these different like subcultures and camps. In all of them, I still, I mean, I only have like, I don't even think I have 3,000 connections on LinkedIn, right? I'm still new, but I will find these pockets of brokers that pop up, and then it just still blows my mind every time. I'm just like, what do you like? Your profile pictures from 2004. Which I get, and I also get it. You want to know what? Because again, like it's a lot to figure out. And I want to know what, when I started at the brokerage that I started at, they have a very robust internal marketing department. And so I was very spoiled and didn't understand that most brokers have absolutely nothing. Nothing, no support at all. And so, I'm kind of in my sophomore year in the business now. I started in May of 24. And then a year after that, almost to the day, I was on the top floor of Hudson Yards at Strip Mall Guys Gala. And then that was a whiplash trajectory. Also, I'm afraid of heights. And so, um, but yeah, I mean, I sometimes I come across as a little bit of a fangirl, but I am really serious when I mean, like, look, I was considered by many to be an expert on Shakespeare, and like the stories of you guys and what you're doing and the properties and the politics and all of it. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like
Gosh.
and like there's no way for you guys to know that because you guys don't read Shakespeare, and I don't want to waste your time talking about that because you don't need to read that. But the industry writ large needs to understand that they have value, and that the value, if they surfaced it well, could help them make more money. And honestly, you guys, I love you. I love your stories, but I really want to make some money. So let's go. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
anyway.
I love it.
so what are the differences between those platforms? You said there's
Yeah,
big
yeah.
and
That's what
there's
we,
beef
yeah.
between them. I want to know about that.
Oh, yeah. LinkedIn. Okay, so like this is an interesting thing. LinkedIn is the platform that's like this is non-negotiable. You need to be on it and at least have kind of an evergreen landing page there in your profile. And there's a couple of reasons. And I mean, and we can get into it, but LinkedIn also has kind of a bad rap in terms of like, oh, I'm humbled and honored. Oh, I'm thrilled to announce. Oh, I've just closed a deal. Look at my traded, graphic. And like I'm obviously, having a little bit of a judgmental tone about that, because it's overdone, it's trite. It is the most minimum basic articulation of the real story. And I get frustrated when, people default to that. But I also understand that again, like to your point, Martin, just like the practice of articulating yourselves in a way that is engaging in the written word is just very different. It's just different and people don't know how to do it, but they still want to express, I taught writing a lot, right? It's just like, you have to start somewhere. Also with my, like my 6-year-old daughter, she's like, you got to start somewhere, right? You just got to start anyway. But a lot of people really struggle with the fact that it feels really fake, which I think, and I actually am seeing more and more content on LinkedIn that is less and less fake, which I think is, really great. And, and some people in the business, they do have a kind of a phony front to them, but I think it's a skill issue. I don't think it's a moral issue, but X treats it like a moral issue. X hates LinkedIn. It's honest.
X is a much tougher place. I'll say that.
It's tougher. It's really
Yeah,
unfiltered. And then also, the general, and this is where, me as somebody who's very into, like cultural anthropology and media studies, that platform also has an entirely different circumstance and context and user profile than something like Facebook or something like TikTok. They are, I don't want to say the metaverse. No, no, no. But they're digital spaces that have cultures that are real, and then those cultures show up in real lives in the way that people transact with each other.
interesting.
So,
Yeah,
When you say tougher, does that mean like there are more trolls on there? Like
oh
what?
yeah, oh yeah, 100% more trolls, and it's graphic. It gets graphic sometimes. There's no, yeah,
you can feel the anger, and you could feel like their array of emotions a lot, like on a bigger scale,
yeah,
like just from what they're posting or commenting and things like that.
yeah, and
Like
that's
LinkedIn's very sublime, it's very, yeah, mild
and it's
for
optimistic.
sure.
LinkedIn has hope. X has no hope. I mean, you want to know what I actually don't want to? I want to pull that back because, like, there is actually a lot of hope on X, but if you had to kind of put them, in opposite of one another, I would say that there is a lot of content that I post on LinkedIn. I don't have a big following on X, but that's also because Shlomo Chop told me I was being too nice and needed to be less nice, and it's
Yeah,
just taken me
yeah,
a year to figure out how to be less nice because I don't think that being mean is really productive. I think that being critical can be productive, but sometimes people on X are just mean. And yeah, and
yeah,
then will harass you. And that doesn't happen on
yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. It seems like it feeds a little more. I mean, I started like social media like way back when it first started, and I was pretty active on Twitter, but that was like the engagement was a lot different. It was like keeping up with your friends and just like showing where you're at, and just because it was all about the followers. But now it's like, if you don't engage in that difficult conversation of whatever is being posted, then it's like hard to get activity or, have success on that platform. At
Yeah.
least that's the way it feels to me. But
No, that's correct. X is very instantaneous, spontaneous, conversational.
yeah,
You can grow a massive presence on there by just responding to other people's comments. And it moves quickly. It's a
hmm,
little bit, honestly, it's a little bit like being in the halls and the aisles of ICSC. Just like all these opportunities for, spontaneous conversations to happen. And like you'll be kind of hooked in with somebody for a moment. And then it happens again and it happens again and it happens again. And then over time, like you're splitting cigars, after the show floor, right? And you've only met like one other time and you're best friends. And so like X to me, if you the other ones, because look, again, ultimately, our whole stance is, you need to be spending less time, in general on social media, in terms of all the stuff that we as an agency can compress. But the point of putting yourself out there is to have a machine that's working for you 24/7 to build up the like other side of the conversation so that when you do actually have a chance to talk to each other, like you start the conversation faster, you start it ahead of where you already were because you have familiarity with each other. X is one I would say that you have to dump some time into because it's not just about familiarity. That one's about
yeah,
proximity. And you can get, I mean, look, like there's literally no other reason that I am here other than the fact that I'm just very plugged in online.
mm,
And that's also, that's very valuable to people, to be someone who is really tuned in there. And so there's also a level of, intelligence. Sometimes on X spaces up late at night, these guys are talking about real deals. And then sometimes in some of the bigger ones, like when one of the bigger accounts gets on, it'll be like you'll see, I don't know, it was trying to remember when it was, but I mean, I saw somebody basically pitch somebody on something, and then like later they transacted on it, and it just was
yeah,
like because they both logged into X at the same time. It's
yeah,
insane,
yeah.
right?
That's
So there's
amazing.
a lot of potential, but it's also is again for somebody who's just starting out, they want to go big, they want to go viral, they want to do all these things. I'm just like, what do you actually need in your business right now? Because again, like there's a bunch of different ways to do this, and people starting from zero and then going to posting like, 5 times a week and it's a video. And then, we do that all the time. It's possible. But, there's a little bit of an experimentation and an on-ramp period, which like, if you actually went back, you can't, I think I deleted them all. But like the first 3 months of everything I posted was so bad. Or like when you look at, or like, take anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, like go back now,
Yeah.
their stuff was never
Completely.
bad,
Yeah.
but I mean, it took, Zach Mulzer with the unbelievable genius of Annie Bogart, right? At Mulzer Development in Kansas City. I mean, they scaled unreal amounts, and like they're getting like thousands and thousands of followers every day across platforms, but they posted for 6 months and nobody paid attention. And
Mm,
everybody who was watching, before they took off was like, oh, they're going to hit it. They just need to keep
yeah.
getting in the reps. And I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I've sort of been yapping on. There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to unpack for sure. I mean, and all the platforms and the algorithms and all these things are like constantly evolving. It's just really hard to keep up with. But obviously, you are, and I could see that your expertise can be super valuable to guys like us. That we don't spend all our time doing that. We're trying to make our money the other way, but this being
Yeah.
like an addition on that. So I think it's really important.
I feel like I'm sort of creating a new category because even though I don't transact, I guess I just, I'm a fly on the wall to conversations that can be helpful for more than just like, what are you posting?
Hmm.
I think that we're probably moving into a time, and at least in the upper echelon of things, not necessarily for the beginner, but I'm seeing brokers negotiate splits that look more like name, image, likeness deals that an athlete would have than anything we've seen in brokerage ever before. And so that like we're at a really interesting time right now. And, there's also interesting stuff going on in terms of, how, even Hollywood is, putting money behind content now between, the cost of production and the advances in technology, like for everyone, not just in commercial real estate, but content
Hmm.
creation, and the production of media,
Yeah.
is changing really rapidly, and we're seeing more people outside of those, conventional channels or industries like create stuff that really has legs, really entertaining. We've got Owning Manhattan from Sirhan. We got residential covered, right? And we have a little, Bob Knackle and Chris Okada are, our clients. And, so we were very excited for them that they, got that level of coverage by being on the show. But I think that we are still primed to see somebody very soon is going to pierce the veil. Somebody very soon is going to go mainstream. Obviously, Zach Mulzer is the one that's doing that the most right now, but
Mm.
he's a developer and it's a little bit of a different play. I think we're going to see a broker breakout on mainstream within the next 2 years.
Gotcha. Interesting.
But for most people, that's a rising tides lifts all ships situation
Yeah.
because, most brokers don't have support. Most brokers don't have anybody even who approves of what they're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of the brokers that I talk to, the guys that come to CREI Summit, all of the guys in their offices think that they're silly LinkedIn bros, and so, and then, you get, and then you go to that event and you meet people and, 3 months later you're transacting and it's serious,
Yeah. I
but
mean, as a broker, like the basic necessities still are in play. Cold calling,
absolutely.
being the expert in your market, doing the research. I mean, consistently building up your knowledge in the business and activity. But I mean, I really believe social media has to be an added component now. Like it has to be part of what you're doing. I
Yeah.
mean,
And I think it can also just be made of what you're doing. It does not have to be
mhm,
a whole big song and dance.
yeah,
And you can really make it work for you. And, it's not a bad thing to not go viral. Look, I'm not, nobody knows who I am outside of a very small group of people, and definitely nobody, in my immediate physical surroundings have any idea, they don't even know we're talking, right? But you don't need a big following. You just need to figure out how to use, the digital tools that are available to you in a way that's going to work for your business and make it easier to have conversations, whether they're new conversations or they're nurtured conversations with the people you already work with, and just transact. Just
Mm.
transact because guys, I'm telling you, there's no money. There's no money in entertainment. There's no money in it. Yeah, I left the entertainment business because I saw the ceiling. You guys who sell buildings, there's no ceiling. And so this is social media and marketing and all this stuff, it's really flashy, it can be really fun, but it has a ceiling. And so it's a tool that you need to use in your business. And there's lots of ways to start, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed. And so, just I imagine that a lot of people in your audience, I don't know. I was kind of trying to figure it out, kind of where they were at. But I mean, I think especially for, the people that I would expect to listen to this, I mean, you got to think about it like curb appeal.
People like Martin, they are interested. They think there's the value in it, but how do they get started? Like, what's the first step? And that's always the hardest part, right? Starting something new, especially like this, and you're putting so much out there as well. I mean, it's not easy, honestly, but I think if you get over that first hump, then it just gets easier and easier, right? But cold calling as a broker is difficult too, right? When you
Yeah,
first start doing it, it's like horrible, but you keep doing it, you put in the reps, and it gets easier and easier. It doesn't get easier to the point where it's like super easy, but because it's always difficult. Every day you walk in the office still, but you just learn how to live with it, I guess. But, people that are first starting out that have like they come to you, they want that help, but like getting over that first hump, what's the first step for them?
Yeah, so really the first step is just starting with the basic building blocks. Like what's
Hmm.
your value prop? I help CRE brokers with social media. We do social medias, so you don't have to. We help busy commercial real estate professionals. Just like whatever iteration it is, you got to be able to rattle it off. And if you can't articulate who you are and who you helped and write that in a nice little tight LinkedIn, headline that's going to show up underneath your name everywhere so people associate you with it. Bob Knackel, I sell buildings in New York.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just,
Yeah.
so the first thing is actually, like, people overthink it, especially on LinkedIn. They're just like, "Oh, and I'm like, "Look, again, I'm tired, so I'm not trying to sound mean when I say it, but I'm just like, what is
No,
it
I
what
feel you though.
yeah, like, what is and this is why there's beef with LinkedIn is because people are like, "Oh, I'm a synergistic, middle market manager of, like, growth," and or just I mean, I have growth in my title, whatever, but it's just like, "What are you saying?"
Yeah.
Make it easier for people to understand. And that's actually, you want to know what? A lot of people don't understand what their value prop is. And so we really,
Yeah.
and so I kind of have a checklist that I go through and that, Mo has spent a lot of time developing, right? I mean, she's been doing this for so long. I learn so much from her every day. I can't, I just am really lucky to be where I'm at. But it's like where we kind of have a list and it's like, I can kind of push somebody through the list depending on, or just skip ahead, right? Depending on where they're at. But it's like, if you're starting from zero, to get really clear about who you are and who you help.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
next step would be great. You know how you can help them. Where are they? And that again, you want to know what? That's not any different than figuring out your prospecting. It's just a different platform. There's different
Yeah.
rules. It's a different
Yeah.
game, but it's really not. It's not a different game.
I like
A different core.
it's funny that you say that because like I encourage our team to don't say you're a commercial real estate agent. I say, I help strip center owners, advise them on their properties so they can make better returns on investment. It's something that's just like telling exactly what
Yeah.
service you're providing rather than commercial real estate agent. It's because it's so vague. If you told someone that you're a commercial real estate agent, they have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'm the living proof of that because like I had no idea that any of this was here. And it's
Mm,
it's really incredible, right? And I still, I've done a lot of trainings, but think I would have to check my notes, but I can tell you what a triple net lease is. I'm not going to do it on the podcast because I'm going to get it wrong. Do you know what I mean? But it's just like, there's a lot you especially in retail, you really have to be able to know how to make yourself legible because very different than any of the other asset classes because you'll also, you'll have a lot of, mom and pop owners or, new business owners and maybe not necessarily at the level that you guys are transacting at, but in general, there is a lot of variety in the kind of people that you work with in retail and retail investments. And you guys
Dude,
need to
retail and social media line up so
so good.
freaking well. Like, if some of the agents, I tell them, like, dude, just get on Instagram. You have access to all these restaurant
I
owners,
know.
all these people trying to sell something in your local market, and just DM them, hit them up. Go, you know where they are now. Before you had to like drive the market, you had to like know somebody that knew that person, but like you have like direct access, like on this one platform. Like you could be a killer tenant rep, just like getting all that.
It's really,
Retail is amazing with social media.
it is because it also pierces the veil to a mainstream audience. They love the retail profiles, the accounts, right?
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of different reasons for that, but it's really universal appeal. And, again, here, you want to know what? This one's for free. I talk about it all the time. This is something that you could
Yes.
start doing today and it's actually not very different than what you just said, but to codify it, the fastest way to grow is to amplify others. The fastest way to grow and actually a way to add incredible value to for your prospects and your clients is to give them a media platform because they can't do it, and if you can figure and honestly that's the basis of my whole trajectory of how I arrived here in terms of like I called people who already had audiences, and had some things to say who are busy, and granted they all made their own stuff, but I basically came to them with a free, earned media placement and then just,
Right.
tapped into their audiences there. And so, you could go do exactly what you said and make a whole complete marketing plan around that. You could
Right.
build, you can market properties that way. You can strengthen, community relationships that way. I just finished wrapping a series for one of my clients who is doing they opened a new headquarters. They built out a new headquarters. And most of the series is doing interviews with all of the people who were involved on that project and giving them the stage. And that's fortifying, relationships, outside of just getting a bunch of likes and views. There's so many different ways to capitalize on this. But
Yeah,
again, like it just starts with that one little idea. Anyway,
for sure.
So Fly, do you also work with companies on their social media? And I mean, because I've seen very few companies that do social media very well,
it's hard.
at least in our space. I think that might be not true in other spaces, but I haven't seen too much social media out there that, gets viral or anything that comes from a company.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, okay.
There's a few people who are making it happen for themselves, but the reason that it's happening is because it has a really strong, founder attached to it, a face, a personal, I think I would, did I talk about this already? Maybe we talked about it on the other podcast that it's much easier to scale a personal brand in this space than it is a company brand because on social media, because of the nature of the platforms, is very personal, right? You don't call the company, you call the person at the company, right? You have a relationship, so you are talking to real people, which is, why it is hard to do corporate branding if they don't have a voice. But it's not impossible. And so, yeah, primarily we work with, or historically, primarily we have worked with, really only personal brands. But there's a pretty structured and standard way that you can build a content program for what a company, a brokerage, like whatever it is, right? But coming from a corporate voice, if you kind of, you put somebody as a figurehead, or you give a platform, to the people that are in your community, whether they're the people who work for you or your clients or your partners, and you have a little fun with it. Have a little fun with it. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
entertaining. And that I think is what's hard because that, everybody's so buttoned up.
Yeah.
I get it. There's a lot of money on the line. I get it. I get it.
My goal for social media, like moving forward, is to loosen those buttons a bit. I'm pretty serious when it comes to social media,
You
and
wanna
I
what
think
it
I'm
works
gonna
for
have a
you.
little more fun.
It
Well, I
works.
mean, things have to evolve too, right? And yeah, I believe in evolution, and I mean, even from when I first started, like to where I got till now, I mean, it's always been about evolution. I don't know. I think maybe getting older too. It's just I think you got to have more fun in life too, and like it's just make it more enjoyable because that's what really matters.
Yeah, and fun doesn't necessarily always have to mean do a little dance for the TikTok.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like to me, this is fun. And to me, talking with you guys is fun. And you want to know what well, I don't know what your listeners are going to think of me, Ray, but they could, if they have some thoughts, they can call me. But yeah, I just there's, it a lot is possible, and I am happy to hear that you are having success and looking forward to exploring some more stuff because your stuff is great.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Maybe we should give Martin a 12-month challenge with social media.
We could talk about it.
I'm hesitant to fully accept right now, but
Well, no, but yeah, I mean, like you two, I mean, Ray, I don't really think you need my help. Martin, I like you, we could talk about it. But like, listen, if you are somebody who's listening to this and you're like, I see what Ray is doing, I see what other people are doing, whatever the blocker is, you don't have time, you don't have the technical ability, you don't have the, whatever it is, right? Like, 225-270-2061. My job is to talk to you and figure out whether or not we have a way that we can help you or, just to get the little direction, right? Because that's how talking to brokers and listening to brokers and figuring out how to help them again. It just
Yeah.
it's going to help all of us, right? And I have underestimated the amount of friction and hesitation that that there is, and I want to eradicate it. I want to
yeah, I
just get
think
rid
it's
of it.
always, for me, it's always been a time thing. And it's like anytime that I've thought about it, I don't want to just put out something that's trite and, regurgitated a million times across, the platform. And I'd like to be creative if I did something and offer something unique that takes, time to think about. And then of course, when you're not used to posting, you're searching for the right resources to convey it in the right way. And so, anytime I've even given that thought, I'm like, "Okay, I got a million things to do."
I
Send
get
them
it.
the
I'm
contract, Fly. Send them
yeah.
the contract.
Well, that's just it because
Sign them up.
because you want to know what? I mean, this is really truly this is it. Everything that you just said after like, oh, I have this idea, like I want to be creative, but I don't. And then your long list of other stuff that comes up with that. It's my job to figure that out. It's
Right,
a waste of
right.
your time to worry about that. I have one client that he'll, come to me and he's like, I'm worried about this. Sorry, I know you're going to watch it, but I won't name names, but it's like, I'm worried about this. And I'm just like, why are you wasting your time? And why are you wasting my time with this? Because it's my job to worry about this. It's your job to sell buildings. So what are we
Mhm.
even doing here? Get out of my phone. And then he like gets
Wow.
back to work and you
Yeah.
want to know what? And that guy's like, that guy rips numbers. You know what I mean?
A baller.
It's just,
Yeah.
well, but you want to know what? Again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, we're all just people. You want to know what? We're all just people. And I can't do what you guys do, but I like what you guys do. And I'm really good at taking what you guys do and making it look nice for the feed. Anyway,
That's
and I
awesome.
learned it all from Mo. Anyway, sorry.
You heard it from the best. You heard it from the best. Fly Jamerson. Do you have a couple minutes just to talk about
Yes, absolutely.
CREI?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a yapper,
Big
you guys. I'm real sorry.
growing event, which has been, looks like it's been growing year over year. The events seem to be getting bigger and bigger, more participation from the brokerage community on that. Could you touch it a little bit on that and tell people about what the whole thing is about?
Absolutely. So, CREI Summit, where I am the chief of staff, fractionally with Ken Ashley, the founder, and the many other leaders across the industry who are involved with that organization. This year is going to be the 6th year of the summit happening in Savannah, Georgia, September 23rd to 25th. I know there's a lot of conferences that go on that time of year, but the only it's the only event, it's the only conference that is specifically dedicated to not only the community of people who, are just like us, right? We're not competitors. Iron sharpens iron, rising tides, lift all ships. We're going to learn from each other. It's the only conference that is dedicated to learning more about digital tools for business development, and the community that it has created is about so much more than just education and networking and, deal making. I mean, it's about all those things, but it's really more.
What's the agenda
So,
look like for when you go to the event?
yeah, so it's a 3-day event. So there's a lot of social programming. Last year, Bob Knackle and Ken Ashley had a tournament on the mini putt-putt course.
Wow.
It's like you want to know what it feels, at times it feels like a little bit of a smaller ICSC, like regional event, just because it's a very intimate group. And so there's social programming. There's lots of time to get to know people, especially because a lot of the people have formed, relationships online. There's a day and a half of educational programming we invite, some of the top performers in the industry who are not just people who have big followings, but who are some of the highest performers in the industry to talk about how they are using these tools and to help other people learn, whether it's a technical thing, whether it's a mindset thing, whether it is something related to marketing, but also market analysis. The digital tools for business development that we've seen come out of the advent of AI, in terms of prospecting, in terms of everything that you guys get on the back end that I'm not even going to try to explain because on some levels, I'm just the marketing girl, right? But there's nothing else like it. And it is a community of people who all see that there is so much power in these platforms and these tools, and that there's no other place it is dedicated that we're going to come, we're going to help each other learn, and we're going to take it back online and, be an engaged community all year round. There's really nothing else like it.
What's the dates on these again, Fly?
September 23rd to 25th. You can go to CREISummit.com. And there's a lot of other stuff on the website, but you can also find on there is the CREI list, which is the annual ranking of not just influencers, but innovators and people having a lot of impact in the industry. And I think maybe by the time this is released, the submission window will have closed, but you guys definitely need to submit for the podcast list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We'll give it a shot. Well, Fly, thank you so much for your time and being with us. I know that you were pretty tired this morning, but joining us, it really means a lot. So please tell us again where anybody listening to this could connect and follow your work and where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. I am primarily I'm on every platform, but the ones that I'm most active on, if you're trying to reach me, would be LinkedIn, Fly Jamerson. And on X and Instagram, it's it's Fly. And I literally live inside of the internet. Google Maps just told me I spend 92% of my time in my house. And so obviously I need to flip that ratio around a little bit. But I'm just very available online. Fly at movomediamarketing.com. And again, 225-270-2061. And if you make me laugh in a comment in one of my posts on LinkedIn, I will send you something in the mail. So, little challenge.
Awesome. Okay, I'm challenged. I need something in the mail from Fly. Awesome.
It's one of these, by the way.
Okay.
But what is the meaning of that? I did want to ask that earlier.
Ray, you want to tell us what that is?
The number of square feet inside 1 acre.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's all right, but this is a cap rate. That's a cap rate Craig hat. Also,
I love it. It's the perfect meme. Right? That's one of my favorite accounts.
I should know that.
Craig.
It's all right.
Oh, awesome, Fly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We really enjoyed it. It was awesome.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
We'll do it again.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.